React Native has a built-in gesture recognizing system called the PanResponder. We can use it to detect when the screen is being touched and released, and we can read the accumulated distance between the first touch and the release. So it's not just when the screen is touched, but also where the touch gesture is going and where it ended. So we can easily implement features like drag and drop or swipe left and right with this API. We can also recognize multi-touch features like pinch, zoom, or shrink. Our example will be a simple one. We want to recognize the swipe left and right gesture and do something when they are detected. One thing to understand is that the PanResponder itself does not make any changes to the UI. It is used to only detect fingers on screen movements. This is why the PanResponder is usually used with the animated API so that we can do actual changes to the UI in response to detected touch gestures. In our example, if we detect a swipe gesture, we want to animate one image out of the screen and animate another image into the screen. We define handlers for a PanResponder object. They are called panhandlers. These are things like onResponder move, onResponder release. These handlers need to be passed to the UI element that need to respond to touch gestures, which is the deal image in our case. The handlers expose two objects. Event is the native touch event, which can give us absolute locations on the screen of where the touching finger is. This is often not very useful. The more useful object is the gesture state, which exposes many properties like move X and Y, and more importantly, dx and Y. The dxy properties hold the accumulated distance of the gesture since the touch started. This is going to be useful in our example to detect the swipe gesture. Let's take a quick look at the PanResponder API. You can create a PanResponder object with the create method, which takes a configuration object that defines the methods. I think these methods are unnecessarily verbose, but that's what we have to work with. You can override any of these methods if you need to. For example, the onPanResponder grant method can be used to show a visual feedback that a touch gesture has started, so we can, for example, highlight the area that was touched. OnPanResponder terminate can be used to detect if a gesture was canceled. However, for our example, we'll keep things simple. We need the onStart should set PanResponder to be a function that returns true. This basically activates the responder. We need the onPanResponder move, which is the core detector of the swipe gesture. When the touching finger starts moving on the screen, the user basically is swiping in one direction. This handler will give us the distance traveled in that direction. So in our example, when this handler is called, we want to move the image that is being swiped with animation. And finally, we need the onPanResponder release to decide if the swipe was far enough to actually animate the image out of the screen. I usually go with 40% of the width of the device. If the image is swiped 40% or more in one direction, we will need to continue the animation all the way when the swiping finger is released. We'll use this handler to accomplish that. The RN Tester project has an example for the PanResponder API if you want to see it in action. But we're going to do our own example next, step by step. We'll do that in the next video.